Welcome to our LHS virtual open house. My name is Alyssa Smith. I am your student's U.S. history teacher this semester. I'm going to give you just a brief little introduction to who I am. This is my 11th year teaching, 5 years, have been here at Lowndes High School. I teach not only U.S. history, but I also teach AP U.S. government and politics. So some of your students may have had me their freshman year if they took AP Gov. So I'm so excited to have your students in my class this semester. I have a 1-year-old, 1.5-year-old, so along with my husband, life is really fun and really busy and a little chaotic, but it's great, and I'm so excited to teach your students this semester. Now, I'll give you a little bit of overview of the course they're taking. So your students are in my U.S. history course. We have 9 units that we go through. And honestly, we go pretty quick because we have a lot of history to cover before the end of course exam in May. So we've just finished Unit 1, actually. Unit 1 was colonization. So we started with the creation of the 13 colonies. And now we're moving into Unit 2, which is all about the American Revolution, talking about the different ways that the colonists were protesting, eventually leading up to the Declaration of Independence and the creation of our U.S. government. So we'll talk about the Constitution, of course, along with the actual Revolutionary War. Then we'll move on to Unit 3, which is a young republic. It's all about America in our first few years as a nation after the U.S. Constitution was adopted. So we'll cover our first 7 presidents in that unit, just kind of talk through the things that are really kind of shaping the United States into who we are. Then we get into Unit 4, which is all about Manifest Destiny and westward expansion, and this separation between the North and the South, and leading into the Civil War. And so we'll discuss this division between our country over slavery and over a difference in what states versus the national government should do. And then, of course, we'll get into the Civil War and talk through some different battles. And then, of course, the ending of the war and what we call the Reconstruction period. Then we move on to expansion and reform. Here we're talking about big businesses, so Andrew Carnegie, Rockefeller, and then we're going to talk about all kinds of different reforms that come about in the United States, trying to make the U.S., a better place for everyone. Then we move... the bell. Then we move into Unit 6, which is all about World War I, and then we get into the 1920s. So we'll fight World War I. We'll mostly focus on what's happening here on the home front during the war, and then we'll talk about the Roaring 20s going on after World War I. Unit 7, we get into the Great Depression, so all the causes and effects of the Great Depression, and then get into World War II. And again, we focus mostly on what's happening here in the home front in World War II in U.S. history, but we will talk through some of the key turning point battles, I guess you would say, in World War II. And after the war, what does post-World War II America look like? So with Unit 8, we get into the Cold War. So we talk a lot about this tension between us and the Soviets, and then we'll go through some of the wars that happened during the Cold War, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and a lot of the politics happening here at home, too, during the Cold War. And then we'll get into the civil rights era in the United States, and definitely all the political things that are going on there. And then finally, Unit 9 is the modern era. So we really start with President Nixon, and we go all the way up through President Obama, and talk about the different presidents and their policies, and how that's shaping the United States to be the modern nation we are. So in this course, we talk through the good, the bad, and the ugly of United States history. So there have been some wonderful things that have happened in U.S. history, and there have been some really difficult, hard things that maybe we're not proud of as a nation that have happened as well. So we talk through all of it and talk about how every single thing that has happened throughout our history has shaped us into the nation that we are today. And we even talk about, in Unit 9, we kind of end with this political division that we have in America, and we kind of trace back, some of the things that have caused that. But it's a great course. It's so important for students to know the history of their country. Sorry, my lights are motion detected and it went off. It's very important for students to know the history of their country. So it is, it's an important course, and it may not be one that students find the most interesting, because I know a lot of people don't love history like history teachers do, but I think your students are going to find value in the course. And just being knowledgeable about our history and the reasons why our country is the way that it is today. Now, I told you that this course ends with an end-of-course exam. So on May 13th and 14th is when we take our U.S. history exam. It is 20% of student scores, and it is a standardized state-given test, but that will count as 20% of their grade. But I know your students are going to do great. They're going to be well prepared for sure. Now, I will show you on Google Classroom. If you want to look at Google Classroom with your student, I do have our syllabus here for us. And most of you probably saw the syllabus because students were supposed to get it signed and bring it back. But on the syllabus, I've got the Remind code, and actually that should be one more C, I believe, in the Remind code. But I have the Remind code there, so you can always feel free to join Remind 101. And then I've got some tentative test dates, how their work or their grades get scored, and then just some basic information about policies in my classroom. But students know that, every day I expect them to have their Chromebook. We do a lot on the Chromebook in this course. For every unit, students will have a quiz, students will have an exam, students usually have an assignment called a one-pager assignment. They get an extra credit study guide if they want some bonus points on their exam. And then, of course, we have lots of different daily grades and a couple of projects thrown in as well throughout the course. Students also will do some quick checks every day. That's why they need their Chromebook, to kind of just do a quick check-in with them to make sure they're understanding the material on a daily basis. Your students are doing great so far, so I expect great things out of them this semester. If you need to contact me, you can always send me an email. So alysasmith@lowndes.k12.ga.us is my email. Or you can contact me via Remind. Now, I will tell you there is a new communication system Lowndes County Schools are going to soon called Rooms, and I think you'll be able to access it through the Lowndes County Schools app. So when that goes live, I think in February maybe, you will be able to contact me via that system as well if you need to. But like I said, your students are doing great, and I'm just so excited to teach them this year all things U.S. history, and hopefully by the end of the course they will have learned to love history. But even if that's not the case, as long as they come out of this class with a pretty good knowledge of how the United States has moved and become this power that we are in the world, I think will be really good for them. And again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Sorry that we couldn't meet in person this year, but I hope that this helped you understand exactly what your students are learning and what they're expected to know and expected to do in this course. And I look forward to all good things from your kids this semester. It was nice to meet.